What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steve.
I'm Lindsay.
Today we're going to be checking out 32 Irish town place names explained. I think what we're going to see here is the 32 Irish counties explained, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe the largest town within each county.
Like the county seat, basically.
Yeah, that's what I think we're going to see here, guys. And this is something I've been wanting to explore for quite some time now, to kind of learn about all the different counties within Ireland.
Ireland has a rich and diverse history of place names, which reflect the culture, language and landscape of the country. Most of the place names in Ireland come from the Irish language, but some also have influences from English and Viking languages. The place names often describe physical features, historical events, or local legends associated with the location.
So pretty.
In today's video, we're going to take another tour around Ireland and look at some towns and cities in all 32 counties of Ireland and find some of the interesting origins behind their names, as well as some history of the area. But let's start first with the name of the island itself, Ireland, or Éire in Irish.
Éire.
It is said that the name of Ireland comes from the Old Irish word Éire, the name of the goddess. Éire and her sisters, Banva and Fola, were part of the Tuatha De Danann, the legendary tribe of gods and goddesses who ruled over Ireland in a time before mortal men walked its shores.
Wow.
Éire is generally believed to have been the goddess of Ireland. And the legend says when the Milesians, an invading force, saw claim over Ireland as their own, Éire, in an act of defiance, ascended to the summit of the sacred hill of Ishnok in Westmeath. There she proclaimed that the land should bear her name for eternity. Her request was honoured, and Ireland is named after her to this day.
Wow.
Okay, now let's look at some other place names in towns around Ireland. And let's begin our journey at the top of the island in County Donegal. And the town we're going to look at is Buncrana.
Buncrana.
I just want to say I love the accent.
Yeah, I do too.
I know there's different accents within Ireland.
Yeah.
But it's just very pleasing to the ear.
Yeah, it's very soothing, actually.
And the artwork's beautiful too.
Or Buncranacha in Irish. This translates to foot of the River Crana, which reflects the location of the town at the mouth of the River Crana, where it empties into Lough Swilly. In ancient times, Buncrana was part of the kingdom of Tyrconnell, ruled by the O'Doherty chieftains. The O'Dohertys had a stronghold in the area, which played a vital role in local politics and defence. And it is where the Irish revolutionary Theobald Wolfetone was held captive during the 1798 rebellion. In County Derry, we'll find the town of Coleraine, or Colerahan in Irish, meaning Nook of the Ferns. This again comes from the location of Coleraine, in the bend of the River Bann, where ferns grow abundantly. And it is said that in the 5th century, the patron saint of Ireland, St. Patrick, arrived in the town and was greeted by the local chieftain, who offered him a piece of ground on which to build his church. The spot was next to the River Bann and was overgrown with ferns, which was burned by some local boys to amuse themselves. This incident led to the area being called Colerahan, and later to the anglicised Coleraine. In Antrim, we'll find the town of Ballymena, or Ambalyamanach in Irish, which means middle town. This makes sense as Ballymena is located in the centre of the county and reflects its historical role as a central hub connecting people, trade in the heart of the county. Archaeologists have found existence of settlements in the area as early as the Bronze Age. However,
What is this?
I think it's like remnants of some kind of civilization.
Well, obviously.
Well, I know, but I'm saying, like, he said they unearthed.
No, I get that. I'm just saying, like, I wonder, like, there's these circles, right? I wonder what that means. I think this is a circle, if I'm mistaken. It looks like there's, like, I don't know for sure if it's just these two, but these look like circles as well on top of this hill here. By the way, guys, you guys have such a beautiful green, lush landscape. I mean,
I know.
That's obvious, right?
I love it.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Yes.
earliest signs of civilization in the vicinity of Ballymena dates back to the 5th century, marked by the establishment of a church just a few miles away from present-day Ballymena. Additionally, a monastery was constructed in that area, but like most of the monastic sites of that era, it fell victim to the Viking raids of the 9th century. In County Down, we'll look at the town of Bangor, or Bionker in Irish, which translates to horned or peaked curve. This name describes the shape of the bay that Bangor is situated on, which resembles a horn or a peak. However, there is an old Irish myth that tells the tale of two warriors, one from Connacht and Ulster, who were returning to Ireland from the Alps with a ship full of cattle. When they came to the shore at Bangor Bay, the cattle shed their horns, thus giving rise to the name, the Strand of the Horn Casting. Now let's travel to Armagh, where we'll find Portadown, or Port Ondunaun in Irish, which means Bank of the Little Fort. Long before the plantation of Ireland, the Portadown area had been populated by Irish Gaels, and this fort was most likely the fort of the McCanns, who had been in the area since before the 13th century. Next we'll travel to Tyrone and look at the town of Omagh, or Anomi in Irish. The translation of this means the Virgin Plain. This name comes from the fact that Omagh is located on a flat, fertile land that was untouched by human activity in ancient times.
Like a patchwork
Eventually,
quilt.
the area was settled.
That is so crazy, though. Like, look how few trees there are. But it's lush, it's green with grass, but there's just so few trees.
Yeah.
You know, that's something I'd like to look into, guys. Like, I obviously picture, when I think of Ireland, I think of lots of lush rolling hills, cliffside, coastline, and things like that.
Green.
Lots of green, lots of, like, little pockets of water and things like that. But I don't think of forests and lots of trees and stuff like that. I'd like to look
And
into...
I'm sure some exist.
There is. I've actually talked to some people. There is like some spotted forest throughout, but I'd like to look at like the largest like forest
that
or
would be
woodlands to see what that looks like, how big it is, and things like that.
Yeah, because you're right. That's not what you tend to think of.
You think the rolling hills and
Yeah.
stuff. You think of, you know, grazing cattle and things like that. And I think it's probably because over time, you know, the woodlands have been cut down. You know?
Yeah, I'm sure a long time ago there was much more.
Yeah.
And a monastery was apparently established on the site of the town around 792. And Omagh was officially founded as a town in 1610.
792.
In Fermanagh, let's look at the town of Enniskillen, or Inishkehlen, which means the island of Kehlen in Irish.
Seems like such a
Catelyn was the
hard
queen
language.
of the Fomorians and married to Balor, the king of the Fomorians. She was also a prophetess and warned Balor of the impending defeat by the Tuatha De Danann. And according to local legends, it is believed that Enniskillen is where Catelyn met her tragic end. And the story goes that Catelyn died on an island in the River Éire in the vicinity of Enniskillen after sustaining injuries from arrows in a battle. The island and surrounding town was named in her honour. But like all stories like this, it lacks substantial history.
Wait, just say island? Island, right? Mm-hmm. Wasn't he talking about in this county right here?
Oh, go back a little.
The island of Catelyn in Irish.
Yeah.
Catelyn was the queen of the Fomorians and married.
Yeah, island.
But like all stories like this, it lacks substantial historical evidence. And some say Enniskillen was originally named after a fortress on the island in the River Éire, which was historically associated with the Maguire clan of Fermanagh. In County Monaghan, we'll visit the town of Clones, or Clun Osh in Irish, which means meadow of Osh. But it could also mean meadow at the top, or meadow of the height. Clones is one of the oldest continuous settlements in County Monaghan. It developed around a monastery established by St. Tyrnach in the 6th century, and St. Tyrnach's tomb in the town is marked by a stone sarcophagus dating from the 13th century.
Wow.
But unfortunately, the abbey built by Tyrnach was attacked by both Vikings and Norman invaders, and in the 12th century, after one terrible assault, it was completely destroyed.
That's so sad.
I was just thinking that,
like how much of
is
history,
destroyed.
has been destroyed in
through
wars and things.
everywhere. And it's just like
You got to wonder, like,
what the world would look like right now.
what all has been destroyed. Like some of these wonderful,
Beautiful,
marvelous
yeah.
buildings and stuff. I'm a sucker for like beautiful architecture, old abbeys and buildings and things like that. So it makes me really sad when I hear of these structures being burnt down and stuff.
Yeah.
Even though it was long ago, I wish they were around today.
To admire and experience.
But in the same location, St. Peter's and Paul's Abbey was built, known to the locals as the Wee Abbey. Journeying south to Cavan,
Wee Abbey.
we'll go to the town of Belturbet, or Belcharbeth in Irish, meaning mouth of the Isthmus. Belturbet's location is historically one of the best places for crossing the River Éire. It was the capital of the kingdom of East Breffni, which was an historical kingdom of Ireland. When the Normans settled in the area, they built one of the finest examples of a Motte and Bailey type fortification in the country. And loud we'll look at the town of Drogheda, or Drogheda.
Okay, so he's not actually mentioning the county names. So I'm not exactly sure.
I thought he did.
I thought he did too, but he just didn't when he introduced the last couple. So he must.
Sometimes.
Yeah, like, unfortunately, that means I'm not going to know the county names these towns are in, which is, I was hoping to see that, but, nonetheless.
In Irish.
It says
which
it down
means
there.
the bridge.
Oh,
of
wait,
the
does
ford.
it?
This again comes from the location of Drogheda, on a bridge over the River Boyne, which was once a formidable crossing point. Drogheda was originally 2 towns built on either side of the River Boyne. Hugh de Lacy granted a charter for an establishment of Drogheda town on the Meath side of the river in 1194, whereas Bertram de Verdun, another prominent Anglo-Norman, founded his town on the Louth side of the river. The 2 towns later joined into one in 1412. A grim fact about Drogheda is that in 1921, the preserved severed head of St. Oliver Plunkett, who was executed in 1681, was put on display in St. Peter's Church, where it remains to this day.
What?
Plunkett himself was the last victim of the Popish Plot, a fabricated conspiracy against Catholics in Ireland. And on July 1st, 1681, he was found guilty of treason in London and was hung, drawn and quartered. His body was then burnt by bloodthirsty reformers. Almost 300 years later, Oliver Plunkett would then become the first Irish saint in almost 700 years. In County Meath, let's look.
So, like, that guy's head is still at that church?
Yeah.
Okay, it said preserved head, didn't it?
Ooh.
Did it say preserved head? I swear it said preserved head. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, otherwise I feel like you'd say skull.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Like, is it literally his preserved head with
I
like...
want to see it now.
You want to see his preserved head?
I just want to see how good it's preserved.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I understand. Yeah, I kind of would too. We're freaks over here.
The town of Trim, or Bala Aha Thrum in Irish, which means town of the ford of the elderflowers. The name comes from the fact that Trim is located on a ford across from the River Boyne, where elderflowers grow. Trim is also known for its medieval and cinematic fame, as it is the site of the magnificent Trim Castle that was featured in the Braveheart movie. The castle was presented as the walled city of York, and some scenes that took place in London were also filmed there. Next, let's go west to Westmeath and look at the town of Athlone, or Blochullen in Irish, which translates to town of Lewin's Fort. And the local legend is that Lewin was a man who used to guide people across the River Shannon long before the first bridges were built. Over in Longford, let's look at Granard, or Gronard in Irish, which means high or sunny place. Perched on top of a hill, Granard offers panoramic views, and in legend it is said to be the birthplace of Fionn McCool, the mythical leader of the Fianna warriors. Because of its high location, the area has been populated since the Celtic times. And in one of the ancient Irish epics, it mentions Granard as a place where Queen Maeve of Connacht and her army spent the night before travelling to the Cooley Peninsula in search of the Brown Bull of Cooley.
You know what I think would be an interesting road trip around somewhere like Ireland, for example?
What?
Is to specifically start in one county and go to, like, plan on going to each county's, you could say, most notorious cemetery, oldest cemetery or something like that, or like oldest abbey or church, or you like something along that line, because you can imagine the history, the story you would learn along the way,
or maybe like the most well-known landmark, or
that too. Like I like that idea of going like county to county to county, and like there's something you're going to do other things when you're in each county, but like specifically you're going to make sure you do this one specific thing within each county, visiting the cemetery, visiting that the best landmark in that county, or whatever it might be.
I'm kind of surprised there's only 32 counties in all of Ireland. I figured there'd be more.
I don't know
how big the land area is for. I mean, obviously they vary, but
I was thinking too. You know, it looks like up in like down here and up here you have the largest counties. The rest seems much smaller in the middle here.
In Offaly, let's look at the town of Tullamore, or Tullach Mhór in Irish, which means the Great Mound. Tullamore was also the site of the first aviation disaster. On May 10th, 1785, the town was seriously damaged when a hot air balloon crashed into the town, which caused a fire that burned down as many as 130 homes.
What?
To this day, the town shield depicts a phoenix rising from the ashes. In Laois,
that's insane. I just never even looked into this. I don't really know much about hot air balloons, but in my head,
1785.
I didn't know they were flying hot air balloons that far back. Like
Either.
Again, I don't know anything about hot air balloons, but it's just like that's surprising to me. I don't know when I thought they probably came along, but
I never really thought about it.
I mean, I'm guessing if someone were to ask me before now, I would have said I don't know around the same time as planes, like early 1900s. But
maybe late 1800s.
yeah, maybe a little bit
But
before
still,
planes, but
yeah.
17s, like so they were already flying hot air balloons at that point. When did they start?
Visit the town of Portlaoise, or Portlaoise in Irish, which means fort of the tribe of Legas. This refers to the ancient tribe that settled in the area in the 3rd century AD. Meribah is the former name of Portlaoise town, which was named after Queen Mary I, but it was changed to its name in 1929. Over in Kilkenny, we'll look at the town of Thomastown, or Ballyvicaundaun in Irish, which means town of the son of Andrew. In the 13th century, King John gave the Anglo-Norman lord Thomas FitzAnthony control over the area around Thomastown, which historically was known as Grennan. But Thomas FitzAnthony replaced this Irish settlement, and it is from FitzAnthony that Thomastown was named. Thomastown became a small medieval wall town, with the first walls being built in 1449.
Wow.
In Wexford, let's look at Enniscorthy, or Inishcorthy in Irish, which means...
Oh, I
Island
love
of the
it.
Rocks.
Hold on. What's this called? Enniscorthy. I love the bridges. I'm a sucker for bridges.
Stone bridges especially.
Yes, I love them so much.
One thing I want to say is literally every town he's mentioned has looked so scenic and just postcard worthy. And I feel like here you don't get that as much.
No, not every town. And I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of them have this, stone work, a lot of like the bridges we just mentioned, and a lot of it's got
history and
it's got this, like a lot of it's still got the older buildings and stuff, which obviously we don't have here. We have these
character to
yes,
the town.
that's it. A lot of them have character that, I mean, we have towns with character, obviously. I even think our town has some character and stuff, but like
it's not the same.
It's not the same because it doesn't have the history,
obviously.
Yeah, but I agree with you. I'm curious, like, so I don't think he's actually mentioning the largest towns in each. Is he? Is that what?
I wonder how this list was compiled. Like,
Right.
what was the rhyme or reason?
So, guys, if you know what the rhyme or reason if you look at all the towns he said for the different counties, what is it about these particular towns he's choosing that fit together with all the others? Is it because for example, I don't know if we've reached the town where Dublin is, for example, but I would think that's obviously the largest in that county, right? Obviously, it's the largest in Ireland. So if we don't see Dublin, then that means it's definitely not it's definitely not by size. So that I'm very curious about that. Is it just something else about the history? Something that maybe, well, I don't know. Let us know, guys, if you piece together what exactly we're looking at here.
There's continuously occupied sites in Ireland, with history going back to 465.
465?
Castle
Wow.
dates back to 1205.
Look at that.
And was a private dwelling all the way up to 1951.
A
nearby
private
Vinegar
dwelling?
Hill is a significant landmark in Irish history, particularly associated with the 1798 rebellion of the United Irishmen.
Hold on, guys. I get 465.
Yeah.
It said that town was the oldest that was continuously settled in 465. Wow. That's insane.
Would you like to live in a castle? I think it would be kind of fun.
I think it would be fun.
I would love going up to the top and seeing the views.
Yeah, I think it might, depending on how big the castle is, I think it might be hard to keep it clean.
Yeah.
If it's a large castle, but yeah, if it was a smaller one, I think that'd be pretty cool. It'd be fun to have, probably, especially if it's an old real castle, not one of these modern castles, and have all the nooks and crannies, probably
they're haunted though.
hidden passageways. Well, yeah, that'd be part of the fun of it, right?
Vinegar Hill became a strategic location during the rebellion. The hill provided a strong defence position overlooking the town of Enniscorthy, and on June 21st, 1798, the Battle of Vinegar Hill took place, resulting in a bloody confrontation between the rebels and the British Army. Despite fierce resistance from the rebels, the superior firepower and numbers of the British forces proved decisive. The rebels were defeated and Vinegar Hill fell to the British. The aftermath of the battle saw brutal reprisals against the rebels, and widespread killings, executions were carried out by British forces. And although the battle ended in failure, it had a lasting legacy in Irish history, and the site remains a place of remembrance and commemoration to this day. Moving on to Carlow in the southeast of Ireland, we'll find the town of Tullow, or An Tulloch in Irish, which means the hill or the hillock. The name is quite simple, but the name is quite accurate because...
All right, here we go again. These stone circles. What is that, guys? Like, I've seen a bunch of, at least it seems like I'm seeing a bunch of stone circles. Like, what is that? What is that for? Was it all the same people? Or were these different groups?
It is interesting, though. He said the name is very accurate, so I don't know if it has to do with that or not.
Which means the hill or the hillock. The name is quite simple, but the name is quite accurate because Tullow is located on a hill overlooking the River Slaney. And in ancient times, Tullow was a site of a monastery founded by St. Columba in the 6th century. In Kildare, we'll look at Naas, or An Naas in Irish, or Nás na Riad, which means place of assembly of the kings. And in Irish mythology, it says that the area of Naas was the burial site of Nás, wife of Lugh from the Tuatha De Danann. It is also said that it is where Lugh held his royal court. In the Middle Ages, Naas became a walled market town and was occasionally raided by the O'Briens and the O'Toole clans from the nearby area, which eventually became County Wicklow. Speaking of Wicklow, let's head over there now and look at the town of Arklow. Now, this is an example of a town with Viking influence over the name. The Irish name for Arklow is An Tindermore, which means the Great Estuary. The name Arnkill Lag translates to Meadow of Arnkill, who was possibly the Viking leader who controlled the area at the time. Viking activity in Wicklow is documented in the Irish Annals around 827, and there is evidence of Viking settlements in Wicklow and Arklow along the Vantry and Avonmore estuaries. Now let's head over to the capital and go to Dublin. And I'm going to look at the town of Swords, or Sword in Irish. This translates to pure or clear water, from the fact that located near the town was the well dedicated to St. Columkill, hence the pure or clear water. One of the most notable historical events from Swords, however, is the funeral of King Brian Boru after the Battle of Clontarf. His body was laid to rest for a night in the ancient monastery in Swords, before making its final destination to Armagh. Now down to the kingdom, we're going to visit the town of Tralee, or Tralee in Irish, which means strand of the River Lee.
All right, down here...
Kerrygold butter, right?
Is that I bet that is where it comes from. We love Kerrygold butter, but no, I was going to say, like, this is definitely a beautiful area. The ring of Kerry.
Oh.
And it had the that cliff area. I can't remember what you call that. What do you call that?
I didn't see that one.
You didn't?
I remember you talking about it.
Okay.
Tra is beach in Irish, or strand, and the River Lee is the river that flows through the town. And in the nearby Slieve Mountains, you will find Scotia's grave. And the local legend is that she was an Egyptian pharaoh's daughter who travelled to Ireland to avenge the death of her husband and defeat the legendary Tuatha De Danann. She died in a battle around Tralee and was buried in the mountains, and her grave is reputed to be under a huge ancient stone inscribed with Egyptian hieroglyphs. And the area to this day is known as Scotia's Glen. Over to the rebel county, and we'll look at the town of Bantry, or Beon 3 in Irish, which means the descendants of Beon.
Hold on, did he just say the rebel county? Isn't that what he said?
I don't know. I didn't catch that part. Go back a little.
The rebel county, Cork.
Over to the rebel county, and we'll look at the town of Bantry, or Beon 3 in Irish, which means the descendants of Beon, who was the son of Conor MacNessa, the king of Ulster.
Why is Cork a rebel county?
Along with some other areas around the southwest of Ireland, Bantry also claims to be the ancient connection to the 6th century saint Brendan, or Brendan the Navigator. Brendan was an Irish monk who travelled the world to spread the gospel, but one of his most famous journeys was the discovery of America. Historians have always debated whether a 6th century monk could have travelled across the Atlantic Ocean to discover the New World.
Wait, hold up. If he did, would he have been on a boat like this?
Not. That would be a little unbelievable.
That would be mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Seriously, 6th century...
Divine protection.
Yeah, seriously, a 6th century monk, especially if he was... I mean, he wouldn't be on like a huge ship, right? It'd have to be much smaller, whatever he was traveling on. That'd be interesting.
I wonder, did it say what year he discovered America?
Well, it said 6th century monk, so I mean that was,
Yeah, true.
what's that? 15? Close to 1500. Well, about 1500 years ago or so, something like that.
However, a sailor and geographer in the 70s recreated the 6th century voyage from a boat made of ox hides. In Waterford, let's go to Dungarvan, or
Wait, he did?
Dungarvan in Irish, which means Garavoin's fort.
Wow.
This name is from Saint Garvan, who founded a monastery here in the 7th century. While looking up the history of Dungarvan, I found a tragic episode during the Great Famine in the mid-19th century. The town experienced severe hardships during the famine, and as food prices soared, tensions in the town of Dungarvan boiled over in October 1846, when a shipment of maize arrived in the harbour. The starving locals, desperate, attempted to seize the cargo, but the authorities intervened, saying they had to distribute the food through the local workhouse rather than freely among the local population. This decision angered the locals, which led to protests and eventually escalated to riots, as enraged crowds clashed with police, and eventually the military had to come to maintain order. The riots were fueled by starvation, frustration, and a sense of injustice. It also highlighted the failure of relief efforts and the deep-rooted grievance against British rule. In Tipperary, we'll have to visit Cashel, or Coshel in Irish,
goodness.
which means stone fort.
Wow.
Look at that castle.
That's beautiful, guys.
Cashel Stone Fort.
Is this a real image? Yeah, I think it is a real image.
That's beautiful.
This looks like, is he on the side of a cliff here?
Kind of looks like it. And it looks like the cliff is eroding away.
Wow, man. How old is this thing? This thing is beautiful, guys.
The Rock of Cashel in the town was
Rock of
originally the
Cashel.
seat of the King of Munster, and according to legend, St. Patrick himself came here to convert King Angus to Christianity. It is also the site where King Brian Boru was crowned High King at Cashel. In 1101, the King of Munster gave the Rock of Cashel to the church. Shortly after this, a round tower was erected that still stands today.
Man, I
Limerick
love the
lives in town of
cemeteries.
Éire, or Ardara in Irish, which means Ford of the Oak.
Limerick.
Éire is located on a ford across from the River Maig where oak trees grow. Located on the outskirts of Éire village stands Desmond's Castle. Originally constructed in the 13th century by the Normans, this fortress served as the stronghold and the residence to the Earls of Kildare for nearly 3 centuries, until 1563. In that year, the castle was forfeited to the Earl of Desmond, which gave it its current name. In Clare, let's look at Ennis, or Inish in Irish, which means island. Ennis is surrounded by 2 branches of the River Fergus, forming an island-like shape. And the history of Ennis is closely linked to the O'Brien dynasty, descendants of Brian Boru. Ennis is a rare example in Ireland of a Gaelic medieval town, because it didn't bother building defensive walls. Instead, it grew out of the old friary, which was built around 1240. In Galway, let's go to Tuam, or Tuam in Irish, which means mound or burial place. This actually comes from the Latin term tumulus, which means burial mound. The history of Tuam dates back to the 6th century, when the
Galway.
O'Connor kings of East Connacht established their headquarters there. Eventually, the O'Connors were defeated by the O'Flaherty chieftains of West Connacht and became kings of all of Connacht. In Mayo, let's visit the town of Westport, or Cahar na Mar, which means the stone fort of the Beeves.
Hold on, guys. I'm a sucker for like stone bridges. That's so beautiful.
I love the little flower baskets on the side too.
Means the stone fort of the Beeves. This refers to the 16th century castle owned by the powerful seafaring O'Malley family, who controlled the Clew Bay area. The most famous of the O'Malley clan was the pirate queen Gráinne ní Mhaille, or Grace
Pirate
O'Malley
queen.
in English. Grace O'Malley was born around 1530 off the west coast of Ireland near Clew Bay. Her father was the leader of the clan, which ruled the seas near Achill for over 300 years, collecting taxes from all who passed through. Despite having an older brother, Grace, known for her ruthlessness and natural leadership, inherited her father's position upon his death. Initially, she was left to her own devices by the English, but Grace's increasing pirate activity drew the attention of Queen Elizabeth I. This led to the English kidnapping her 2 sons and her half-brother. This caused Grace to set sail for England, where she had an audience with the Queen. The story goes that Grace refused to bow to Queen Elizabeth, nor recognise her as the Queen of Ireland. And before the meeting, actually the guards allegedly found a knife hidden in Grace's dress. They conversed in the only language they shared, which was Latin. She managed to secure the release of her family and even a promise from the Queen that the English lord would step down from his position. Yet Queen Elizabeth later broke the promise, and the pirate queen Grace O'Malley was fighting again. She most likely died around 1603 at Rockfleet Castle, the same year as Elizabeth's death. In Sligo, let's visit the town of Ballymote, or Ballawota in Irish. This translates to homestead of the castle mound. Ballymote is near a moat, which was a type of artificial hill that was used as a defensive structure in medieval times. Ballymote is known for its 13th century castle, and a book called the Book of Ballymote that was written between 1390 and 1391 near the town.
Have you noticed something? Have you noticed that, like, it seems like a ton of the castles were built around the 13th century? Like, so many I've heard here were like the 13th century. What happened in the 13th century to make so many castles all of a sudden be built in that 100-year time period?
For over 100 years, it was the prized possession of the MacDonaghs. And around the 16th century, it fell into the possession of the O'Donnell clan, and it would stay in their possession until the flight of the Earls in 1603. From 1620 until 1767, it resided in Trinity College, Dublin, but later it disappeared from the library and was later found in Burgundy, France. In 1785, it was eventually returned to the Royal Irish Academy, where it remained one of its prized possessions. In Leitrim, let's look at Carrick on Shannon, or Cara Marouche in Irish. This could mean the rock on the River Shannon, but it could also mean the weir of the marshy ridge. In ancient times, Carrick on Shannon was the stronghold of the O'Rourke's of Breffni. Nowadays it's a lovely place to visit, but there is evidence of its dark past, most notably in the workhouse that was built in 1841. Workhouses served as shelters for the destitute, referred to as paupers, and upon entry residents were required to wear uniforms and were given a very basic diet. When the Great Famine struck in 1845, these workhouses became inundated with families facing severe starvation. Disease spread quickly in these overcrowded spaces, and by the end of the famine, there was over 163 workhouses in Ireland. And finally, let's visit Roscommon and the town of Boyle, or Monaster na Buile in Irish, which means Monastery of the River, which refers to the monastery built there in 1161. And nearby Lockheed will find Castle Island, or McDermott's Castle, that has a long and storied history going back thousands of years.
So cool. It's on its own
the story
little
I
island.
remember from visiting the area as a kid.
Do you have a boat over there?
The local legend of a girl called Una, who was the daughter of the McDermott chief who fell in love with a boy from a lower class. The McDermott chief was angered by this and forbid his daughter from seeing him, but that didn't stop the poor boy, who attempted to swim over to the island to see her. He tragically drowned in the lake, and Una is said to have died from grief. And they were both buried under an old twisted oak tree on the island.
Wait,
They're buried together?
Is that literally legit?
Well, this almost looks like an AI image, but
Yeah, it might be. I'm not sure. But wow.
B. Yeats, the famous Irish writer, was a huge fan of the castle, and it is said that he wanted to set it up as an artistic centre. And more recently, it was voted in the top 10 of one of the most beautiful castles in the world.
Wow.
it was really interesting.
Yeah, it was.
Obviously, I didn't know any of that.
Me
really.
Me neither.
It's sad though. It looked like the last castle they mentioned in the last county they talked about. It looked like abandoned. No, it wasn't being used at all.
Well, it doesn't surprise me. There's probably a ton of castles that are abandoned.
I guess that's true, but for me, it's just sad.
Yeah, no, I hate when things go into... well, it's interesting. It's two-edged sword. I love ruins, but I hate to see beautiful places go into ruin.
Because if stuff isn't kept up, then...
It eventually I mean...
disintegrates.
Yeah, we see what happens to this stuff over time, which is so interesting. I've talked about that before. It's interesting how you can, like, a house, for example, but we can say castles the same way. Any structure, it's like you... If someone's living in it, it's like it stays alive, and
even if they're not like maintaining it as often.
But as soon as
the energy of the people in it,
But as soon as people leave, and they're no longer living there,
deteriorate.
It's almost like the energy, the life force energy, or something of the person or the people within it are keeping it alive, and then they leave. And it just dies. The structure. It's like the structure was living and now it dies. Now, I don't know why that is exactly, but I've seen that happen countless times. You see an old farmhouse here that people will live in, and it'll be fine. And then people will go for like 10 years, and all of a sudden it's just like dilapidated and whatnot.
But that could also be our shoddy
Well, yeah, in this case, yeah, true. Well, no, the older stuff, isn't like that. The newer stuff, man, the newer builds are horrible here. I'm guessing that you guys in Ireland probably have a lot more stone houses and things like that we do. I do too, and they last a lot longer. Our newer, modern wooden houses here are horrible. They really are.
Which we've talked about that.
But guys, this was really, really interesting. I really enjoyed getting a good look of different towns throughout Ireland. I mean, I've never looked at this many towns at one time, and I thought it was fascinating. And each town has such a different history, and each town looks so different, and it was settled by different peoples at different times. And it seems like if you go along the East Coast here, that seems to be the areas where you find more of the Viking type settlements, it seems like.
Makes sense.
And I'm curious, like, what that means on the West Coast. Was the West Coast... did it stay more like, the people that originally were in Ireland before the invasions and stuff started happening? Like, where is the majority of the settlements of those people? You know what I mean? But guys, let us know in the comments what you think we should check out next. We'd love to look into more stuff like this. But yeah, I think that's it for us today. Thank you so much for stopping by. Please click that like button. Feel free to drop your comments or suggestions about this video or others. And don't forget to subscribe to continue to follow us on our journey to discover anything and everything about the UK and Ireland. Until next time, guys. Peace.
Bye.